Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I'm crafting again with the Merry Mugs and Circle Delights collection by Nicole Spohr and Spellbinders. In one of my previous videos, I mentioned that I really wanted to put together Santa as one of these heat transfer projects, but I didn't have any flesh tone vinyl. So I did some shopping and I found some. So I also had a few comments from folks who were very new to heat transfer vinyl, and I mentioned that I would do a little bit more of a walkthrough of how to use heat transfer vinyl. So that's this video here. Now, I'm starting off by cutting my vinyl pieces, and I'm using dies, which I never thought to do. When I think heat transfer projects, I always think to use my Cricut, and when Delise Stamper Girl recommended or suggested using dies, I was blown away that I never thought of it before. So whether you're using dies as I am today, or a electric cutting machine like a Cricut or your brother Scan and Cut, what you want to do is cut into your vinyl. A lot of places will describe cutting shiny side up or shiny side down, and the challenge with that is I have vinyl that looks very dull on both sides. There isn't a shiny side. So I feel like that doesn't always appropriately describe your vinyl. And later I'm going to use 3D puff vinyl, which often people will say, oh, it's the opposite of what you would do with normal heat transfer vinyl because it's shiny side this way or that way. Everything, a lot of times that whole reference to the shiny side being either up or down, I just feel is hard to gauge. And the prevailing thing that you want to remember is you want to cut into the vinyl. And dies are perfect for this, and your cutting machine on the right setting is perfect because it's going to apply enough pressure to cut through the vinyl, but not through the plastic carrier sheet. All heat transfer vinyl will have plastic on one side, and your vinyl will be exposed on the other side. So what you want to do is cut into your vinyl. And so the cutting blade should make contact with your vinyl. As I'm going, I am doing what's called weeding, which is to peel away the excess vinyl. So the bits of vinyl that I do not want to transfer onto my project. And that way, the only thing that remains on that plastic carrier sheet is the actual design of the project that I want to transfer. Now, the other thing with your vinyl is if you don't know which side is the vinyl, because it can be hard to tell sometimes, just do as I did earlier, pick away at the corner until you can peel away the vinyl from that plastic carrier sheet, and that will help you determine what side is the vinyl. Then the other thing, as you're thinking about, especially if you're going to use an electric cutting machine like a Cricut, if you are using a design that, say, has words that need to be legible, then what you'll want to do before you go to make your project is to mirror your design. Because what's going to happen is when we go to transfer all of these pieces onto the project, I'm going to have to flip this upside down so that the exposed vinyl is now face down and the plastic is face up. So when we die cut it, the vinyl was face up. So basically we're die cutting from the back side of the vinyl. And when it gets transferred, it's going to get flipped upside down, and that will in essence mirror the image. So today I'm doing Santa and it doesn't matter, but you'll be able to tell when you look at my project versus other sort of, say, cards where this has been cut into paper, that Santa's hat on my project is mirrored from paper projects. And that's because I die cut from the back side of the hat, and then when I go to transfer it, I have to flip that upside down so the plastic is now on top. And that has the effect of mirroring. Now, with dyes in particular, but this could also just happen with your Cricut, depends on how you set up your Cricut to cut your files. I have a lot of pieces that, say the eyes. The one die cut out 6 individual eyes or 3 pairs of eyes, and they are not, in such a way that it's positioned how you would position it on Santa's face. So what I've done is I peeled the vinyl off of the original carrier sheet that I die cut it onto. And what I'm doing is a bit of a dry fit. I'm placing it on my assembled project. I'm not transferring anything. There's no heat. Everything is still attached to its plastic carrier sheet with the exception of these little bits that I want to put into their proper orientation or position when I go to actually transfer it. So this, for example, is the eyebrow. And the 2 eyebrows and the mustache were on a single die together, but you would not transfer those onto your project the way that they were positioned on the die. So I peeled the vinyl off, and now I am going to position the 2 eyebrows, the 2 eyes, and the nose. And this is just right on top of the plastic transfer or carrier sheets from the pieces below. And because I've been doing several of these, I've just got a bit of leftover transfer carrier sheet from a previous project, and I use that to pick up all of those small vinyl bits. So now I have one plastic carrier sheet that has all of those bits, and those can be transferred at the same time, and they are in the exact location as I would want to see them when they get transferred onto my project. Now, what else do I need to actually do the heat transfer? I've got my mini heat press here. That was on super sale on Amazon, and I picked it up for something like $16. I have it on this cement block just because that does generate some heat, and even though there is a stand for it, I want to really make sure that I protect my work surface. The gray mat is also specific for heat transfer, and it's just a padded mat that is also heat proof. So it helps to protect your surface as well, and it has some give to it so that you can push down on it, apply a bit of pressure, but there's a cushion there. Then I've got my project itself, which is this really cute drawstring bag. It's out of canvas. And then I've got my design, all of my heat transfer vinyl pieces. Now, what you want to do is, as I mentioned before, I always like to do a bit of a dry fit so I know exactly how things look, and I like to try to position things and know, where all my pieces are and where they're going to go. And when I'm ready, I like to do an initial press of my project. It has the effect of 2 things. One, it irons out the wrinkles so you don't have any wrinkles as you're applying your vinyl. And 2, it warms it up so it starts to kind of grab at that vinyl a little bit as you put it down. Then this tan mat here is a Teflon sheet. I think in my previous videos I accidentally called it a silicone sheet. It's not, it's Teflon. The same stuff like Teflon coated pots and pans, for example. So this is, again, something that's heat proof, and it's just going to protect your project and anything underneath from getting overheated or melted onto the metal plates of your heat press. You could use, if you wanted, just plain old parchment paper. I've heard that works really well also. And as you're doing the transfer, there are a couple things that you want to note. You want to note whether the plastic carrier is a warm peel or a cool peel. Warm peel means you don't have to wait for the vinyl to actually cool down before peeling off that plastic carrier sheet. Cool peel means you gotta give it a beat, let it cool down a little before you start peeling that off, because it may start to lift your vinyl if you peel it before it's cooled down enough. it may not necessarily need to cool down to room temperature. So that's one of the things where you just have to kind of test a little bit. Second, with your heat transfer vinyls, you'll want to read the instructions that come with it to learn what types of materials you can transfer onto. Does it have to be 100% cotton, etc.? Then also another two big points are what temperature do you need to set your heat press to in order to have a successful transfer, and as well how much pressure do you need to apply. And so those are the things that you'll want to read because they might be different for all the different brands of heat transfer vinyl out there. As I'm applying my heat to or applying the heat press to these vinyl bits, I'm actually not giving each of them the full amount of time. So for example, that first layer, the circle flesh tone layer, that only the recommendation on that was only, I think, 15 or 20 seconds. These subsequent pieces require 25 seconds, but I'm actually only giving them maybe 10 seconds, just long enough for it to melt enough to grab and attach itself to the layers below. And the reason why I don't go the full amount of time for each and every single layer is because the more layers you have, the more heat gets applied to that very first layer that went down. And to avoid any sort of overheating or anything that might happen as a result of overheating, I try to give each individual layer just long enough to attach, and then I'll do sort of a final press at the very end when everything is attached. Now, the cool thing that I discovered when I was shopping for the flesh tone vinyl is something called 3D puff vinyl. Never heard of it before, but I decided I would use it for the fuzzy bits of Santa's hat, which I thought would be a perfect application for puff vinyl. And it's so cool. It's just like heat transfer vinyl. You cut into it the same way, but when you go to do the heat transfer process, I forgot that it's a little bit different. And it's different in a couple ways. One, you want to be pressing onto a firm surface. So I removed that gray pressing mat that I had. And I did already apply one layer of puff vinyl. So this was a bit of an experiment to try to layer up a second layer of puff vinyl. And it also requires that you really want to heat up your project a lot before you press. And I probably didn't give it long enough, but if you were doing this as your first and maybe only layer, then I would heat up your project, maybe give it 20-30 seconds of heat before you put this down, and then try to heat press onto that. But in any case, I just decided to try it again, and I figured it couldn't hurt to have a second layer. That first layer didn't puff up a ton. It puffed up a little, but not a lot. And the third thing that's a little bit different is that it does require a firm pressure. So I'm actually pushing down fairly hard on this. And it is also a warm peel, so I don't have to wait for the vinyl to cool before peeling off that carrier sheet. And it worked really well. It worked really well to actually add a second layer, and by doing this onto a firm flat surface and making those different tweaks to the pressure and whatnot, I did get a better puff the second time around. The other reason why I wanted to do a second layer of that puff vinyl is because it was also a little bit thin, and where the white of the Santa hat overlapped with the red, you could actually still see the red underneath it. But with that second layer, it works really great. Now, you could, instead of wasting 2 layers of puff vinyl, what you could probably do is just put a layer of white plain heat transfer vinyl underneath. and then put your puff vinyl on top of that if you have that same issue with like being able to see what's underneath of it. But this is a lot of fun, and that 3D puff vinyl is super cool. I'm excited to kind of play with that more and get better at, getting a good puff on it. I hope this has been a helpful video for folks who are new to heat transfer vinyl. And if you have more questions, do let me know in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer. And if I don't know the answer, I'll try to research and put out another video to answer any additional questions you might have. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye!